Hi everyone and welcome to Book Boop. My name is Rachel and today I'm going to talk about something that seems super late to talk about, but you all said you wanted to hear it, and that is the worst books that I read in 2021. I know we're already in March, probably a lot of you have moved on and it's like, I don't care about 2021 anymore, but you know what? Who doesn't like to hear a little bit of tea about some books that I just didn't like? So I have 5 different books here that were all rated 2 stars. These were all my 2-star books from 2021, had exactly 5. Thought I'd go ahead and talk about them all. So let's go ahead and jump in. Before I do though, I want to say if you love any of these books, please don't be offended. This is just my opinion. These are just books that I personally didn't like. If you love them, more power to you. That's awesome for you, and I'm happy you loved them. Let me know down below if you have the same or differing opinion as me, or also please let me know what your least favorite book of 2021 is. I'd be really interested to hear what book you just absolutely just hated and wanted to chuck out the window. That'd be fun to talk about, right? Okay, let's go ahead and jump in. So the first one that I really disliked, 2 stars, was The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. Now, I realize that this is a classic. I get that. But I tried Ray Bradbury twice last year. I read the full length of Halloween Tree. It's not a very long book, so I pushed through it. I tried to read Something Wicked This Way Comes. Didn't make it through it, had to DNF it. I didn't even make it halfway through. I think I got 50 pages in and I couldn't handle it. What I did not like about this book is the descriptions, the writing style. I could not handle the writing style. So if you haven't heard of this particular book before, it all takes place in Halloween. It follows these group of friends, these boys, and they all have dressed up for Halloween, and they end up going on a journey through time to learn about kind of the origins of Halloween, which sounds really cool, right? It's a classic. A lot of people like it. And the descriptions were so bizarre. They were so weird. I could tell it was trying to give a certain atmosphere to it, kind of like that crisp fall autumn leaf, spooky, odd atmosphere, and it definitely gives that. But most of the time, I was just reading it and not understanding what on earth Ray Bradbury was trying to say. He had the weirdest descriptions. I wish I could remember some of the specific descriptions off the top of my head. I can't, but my goodness, it was just so weird, and I couldn't get with the writing style, and I thought maybe that he just wrote this way because this is kind of more like a kid's book. But no, he writes like that in Something Wicked This Way Comes too. He writes that way with that's just his writing style, and I can't handle it. I'm sorry. So I know that's not entirely descriptive of why I didn't like it, but that was just weird. It was weird, y'all. Okay. Moving on to the next one. I got my list here to make sure I don't forget which ones I want to talk about. Ah, yes, this next one. I did own this one. I got rid of it because I really hated it, and that is The Nightjar by Deborah Hewitt. This cover really drew me in, and the description sounded really cool. Hopefully I can kind of remember what this book was about and what I didn't like about it, because I think I've tried to just push it out of my memory. So I remember in this story, it was about living in a world where each person's soul is represented by a bird. And while you are alive, you have this bird that is tethered to you. Now, most people cannot see these birds, but if you have a special gift, you're able to see people's night jars or these birds. And we're following this girl. Her best friend has had a near-death experience and is barely hanging on by a thread. I think she's in a coma. And her night jar has left her, which normally is what happens when somebody dies. Your night jar leaves. So this night jar has left, but her friend is not fully dead, and so she wants to see if she can save her friend. While she is doing this, she ends up finding this whole different world that she didn't know existed. She starts learning about all this magic she didn't know existed and learning more about the night jars, because her whole life she has seen these birds, but nobody else can see them. So she always thought she was crazy and find out that she's not and that they actually exist. All right, so that's the premise. Sounds interesting, right? It's kind of a cool premise. I could not stand the main character because she was so stinking wishy-washy and she was dumb. I'm sorry, she was dumb. There was this love interest that was put in front of her face all the time. So when she finds out about this magical gift that she has, as well as sort of like a different side of London. This takes place in London, a different side of London that's magical. She ends up running into this guy who's a part of this magical other London, who kind of introduces her to it, gets her acclimated into like what kind of magic ability she has. Great. There's chemistry between them. Here's the issue. The guy is a pathological liar. He's terrible. He keeps saying that he won't lie to her. He keeps saying that he will do what's best for her. And he keeps constantly just lying to her. And she keeps finding out. She's finding out that he's lied to her again. And then she's still like, but he's hot though. And I can't stand it when all of the flaws of a character is overlooked just because you have a physical attraction to him. That drove me bonkers. I couldn't stand it. And it happened over and over and over in this book. And I'm like, how dumb are you? Stop trusting this guy. He does not have your best interest at heart. Just because he's hot doesn't mean you should trust him. Just drove me crazy. And then just overall, the writing wasn't that great. We spent a lot of time in our main character's head, and she kept thinking about this guy way too much in a, oh, I think he's so handsome way, and not actually like focusing on the things that needed to be focused on, like learning about her power, figuring out how to save her friend, those kind of things. It just, that's why I didn't like this book, okay? I could not stand the love interest in the main character. Just can't do it. I think there's another, I don't know if this is a duology or a trilogy, but there's more of these books. I would not touch one with a 10-foot pole. I really hated it. It was terrible. Okay, moving on. So this is from an author that is very hit or miss for me. And while I say this, it's because this book is one that I did not like, but I recently read another book by this author that I loved. So you just never know. And that is Horseman by Christina Henry. This is not necessarily a Sleepy Hollow retelling or Headless Horseman retelling. It's a continuation, which is, I thought it would be a retelling, but it was a continuation, which is fine. This book I had very high hopes for, and maybe that was my fault. Maybe I shouldn't have gone into it with such high hopes, but I love the story of the Headless Horseman. I love the story of Sleepy Hollow. To me, it is just like quintessential Halloween spooky. I love this tale. And I was really excited to see what Christina Henry would do with it, because she has a tendency to do retellings of folk tales and fairy tales, but do them with a dark twist. Some of them are well done, some of them aren't. She did some Alice in Wonderland ones that I absolutely hated. She has done a Peter Pan one that I absolutely loved. So I didn't know what to expect going into this, but since I really loved Headless Horseman, I was like, man, I really hope this is good. This was such a miss for me. This was such a miss. I had an issue with the main character. I did not like being in her head. She basically had one specific trait about herself that was hammered into your head over and over. And at a certain point, I'm like, I get it. You don't have to remind me anymore. And in this story, we are following the grandchild of, I'm blanking on the names. So not Ichabod Crane. Like Ichabod Crane was trying to marry kind of the prettiest girl in the village. And the prettiest girl in the village, there was another guy that wanted to be with her. It was that guy, okay? The big, huge dude that really liked the girl and didn't want Ichabod Crane to steal the girl away. That guy. I am completely blanking on his name. This is his granddaughter, okay? So this takes place after Sleepy Hollow. This all takes place after the Headless Horseman. So we're following this girl, and she really wants to be like her grandfather. She sees herself as a boy, not a girl. And in this particular world, or like the way things are in her village, I can understand that. In her village, if you're a woman, you are expected to do very specific things. Basically, you're expected to be a homemaker, expected to be a wife, you're expected to be a mom. That's what you're expected to be. The character we're following, she's wanting to be like her grandfather. She wants to own the family farm. She wants to be a businesswoman. She wants to wear breeches. She doesn't want to wear skirts. She wants to ride the horse through the field. She wants to be a boy, because that's how she sees herself, which I understand, because when you're squeezed into a certain stereotype, if you were a girl and like, oh, if you're a girl, that means you have to be this. I understand that. So I understand where she was coming from. I understood that. I get that. But it was pounded over my head over and over about how she kept saying, I'm not a girl, I'm a boy. And I'm not this, I'm that, and just constantly saying how she views herself as a boy and how she doesn't see herself as the type of girl people wanted and all these things. I get it. I get it. But that was the main character trait and thing that was pounded into our heads. And I wanted Christina Henry to move past that. I wanted to see some character growth. I wanted to see some more, just more from this character. And I just didn't see that, and that really frustrated me. I felt like the plot didn't move as quickly as it should have. I didn't particularly like the spin that Christina Henry put on the Headless Horseman tale. It was okay. I didn't particularly love the story that we were following, but mainly for me, it was just the main character that I wasn't a fan of, because it was just her main character trait was just like that obstinate, I'm a boy, not a girl, and that was it. And I felt like there just wasn't enough to the character. So I was disappointed with that one so much. But like I said, I just read another Christina Henry book and I freaking loved it. So it's good to give authors another chance and just to try some other books that they write that might sound interesting to you, because you never know. Okay, this next one is one I don't even 100% remember what this book was about. And I know why, because it is a messed up mind trip. And that is Other Words for Smoke by Sarah Maria Griffin. So this cover really pulled me in. It's really cool looking. I love the way the words look. I love the look of this like little paper house and like this really cool looking owl, and it just looks really cool. And the description of the book, I remember, was really just very nondescript, so I couldn't understand what the book was about, but it sounded very mystical and spooky and enchanting. And I was like, okay, let's see what this is about. So this book, I think, can kind of be defined as magical realism, and it was freaking weird. I have no idea what happened to this book. It was so strange. The only thing I remember is it's following this house that is haunted / possessed by these two different demons. One of the demons is, you see it as an owl, and it lives within the walls, like the wallpaper of this house. And that particular demon feeds off sadness, I think, like depression, sadness, and fear. I think it feeds off those particular feelings. And then there's another demon who takes the form of a cat and feeds off of like warmth and happiness and all these things. And these two demons are battling it out with the family that's in the house. So basically they're trying to see who can win and who can basically get the fattest, who can suck in the most feeling of whatever they feed off of, which is such an odd concept. I'm surprised I remember that from this book, because it was so freaking weird. It was so strange. And you don't really find out that kind of information until towards the end. And so most of the book, you're like, what is happening? What are these creatures that are in their house? It was so strange. We're following this teenage girl and who lives in the house, and she becomes obsessed with the owl, and almost to the point where she's like worshiping it, and she becomes addicted to the owl. And it is a mind trip. And it was so weird. And it was one of those ones, I finished it and was like, what did I just read? I don't know. I don't recommend it. It wasn't very good, because it didn't really have much of a plot at all. There was no plot. It was just straight weird. So 2 stars, don't recommend. Still don't fully understand what happened in that story. Okay, I've got one more to talk about. And this is actually the 3rd book in a series. And I think I could probably talk about the last 2 books in the series and say they were my least favorites. But this one came up as 2 stars. So maybe I gave the 2nd book in the series 3 stars. I don't know. That is Tomb of Ancients by Madeleine Roux. This is the House of Furies series. And if you may have heard me talk about the series before, but the very first book in the series, called House of Furies, I really loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I had a great atmosphere. I loved the storyline in it. It was all about this really big manor in the country that was being used as a bed and breakfast kind of. It was a place where people could come and get away from the big city and to recover. You know, a lot of times, I think it takes place in the 1800s, and it was where you could come and kind of bring your health back up, and it kind of like a place that you could go vacation. But there was a sinister side to this house. This house actually calls to people who have done terrible things in their lives and are basically going to meet their comeuppance at this house. We're following a girl who ends up becoming a maid at the house, finds out what the house is really about because people keep getting murdered in the house, and she finds out these people are actually getting murdered and killed because they've done something really, really horrible that nobody else had known about. And so it's kind of like this, kind of like purgatory, kind of like a hell purgatory comeuppance type of thing. Anyways, it was really cool, really spooky, and I really, really enjoyed it a lot. And then enter the second or third book, and then it got dumb. So this third book, I don't remember specifically too much about the particular plot in this one, but I remember that it took where we were and then went way over there and didn't even come anywhere close to where we were before. The story got so strange. It started throwing in like this battle between gods and goddesses and that, and I didn't understand what direction it was going in, and it was just so strange, and it wasn't anywhere close to the first book, and it didn't even feel like it was the same series anymore, and it was so disappointing. And like this cover makes you think it's probably paranormal spooky. That's not how this is. It's not like that at all. I mean, it's spooky in the first book, but after that, it's not really as spooky, and it just gets freaking weird. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it. So I was very sad about this series because I felt like it could have been so good. But those are all the books that I gave 2 stars in 2021. Thankfully, it's nice to see I only gave 5 books 2 stars. I think I had a lot of 3 stars in 2021. I had a lot of middle of the road books, but those are the ones that I feel like really just were at the bottom of the barrel, did not enjoy. Again, let me know down below what your least favorite book of 2021 was. I know we've moved on through 2021, but I think it still could be fun to just kind of find out what books you don't like. Let me know if you disagree with me with some of these. I'd be interested to see what you're thinking. Again, if you love these books, that's awesome. Great for you. And I'm happy you like them because somebody needs to love them. You know what I mean? All these books need some love. On this side of the video over here is my logo. If you click on that, you can subscribe to my channel, follow me on my book journey. Please do. I'd love to have you here. On this side of the video over here is a suggestion for another video if you want to watch another one right now. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you for letting me dish the tea for a little bit. You rock, and don't forget to keep reading. Bye.